Hello everybody, this is Bob Ichino along with Mike Arnold from Path Trading Partners. Weekend Path Chat covering the FX markets for the week of April 16th. It is Sunday, April 16th. Happy holidays to those of you that are celebrating something. Let me get started with the economic calendar for the week. Sunday is essentially a bunch of Chinese data, most important being China's gross domestic product, the gross domestic product year over year for Q1, and they also do a year over year, year to date number, strange as that sounds. Both expected to be at 6.8. Last was 6.8 on the year over year for the first quarter, and the last for the year over year on the year to date number is 6.7. They've also got some other economic releases, industrial production year over year and year to date, retail sales, but those will all take a back seat to the GDP number. That is at 9 p.m. this evening, Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. Moving on to Monday, April 17th. Pretty quiet day overall. 1:15 a.m. Central Time, 2:15 Eastern Time. Bank of Japan's Kuroda speaks. That'll be important. We'll see if there's any sort of hints toward future monetary policy in Japan. We've got the Housing Market Index, National Association of Home Builders at 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time here in the U.S. And then in the evening, that'll be at 9 a.m. Central, by the way, 10 a.m. Eastern. And then in the evening, which will be approximately 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 Eastern Time, we've got the RBA April rate meeting minutes. That's the Royal Bank of Australia. Moving on to Tuesday, April 18th. A bunch of second-tier stuff. We've got the survey of professional forecasters for the euro. There's no time release for that. 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern in the U.S. Housing starts month over month and building permits month over month. Housing starts expected to be down 3% versus up 3% last. Building permits month over month expected to be up 2.8% versus down 6.2% last. Remember, that was a pretty big market mover, even though it's a lower level piece of data. The down 6.2% registered with the market last month. Then about a half an hour later, Canada's existing home sales month over month. No forecast on that. And then at about 8:15 Central Time, 9:15 Eastern, we've got U.S. industrial production expected to rise at a 0.5 clip versus no change. Last month was a 0% increase, which I guess would also be a 0% decrease. Then at about 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern in the evening, we've got the Australian Westpac Leading Index of Economic Indicators month over month. Moving on to Wednesday, April 19th. It's a little bit more data heavy. 4 a.m. Central, 5 a.m. Eastern, we've got the following. Eurozone Consumer Price Index month over month expected to be up 0.8 versus 0.4 last. We've got the year-over-year CPI for the Eurozone, expected to be up 1.5, which would be unchanged. And then we've got the core Eurozone Consumer Price Index year-over-year, which is expected to be unchanged at 0.7. Moving on, we've got the Department of Energy crude oil inventories, the EIA figures. Then we've got the Federal Reserve's Beige Book at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Moving on to the evening, we've got Japanese merchandise trade balance total in yen and the adjusted merchandise trade balance. Both of those are supposed to be significantly lower. 605 billion yen versus 813 last on the trade balance total. And on the adjusted merchandise trade balance, 174.5 billion versus 680 billion yen last. Then we've got Japan's foreign bond buying. No estimates on that. Moving on to Thursday, April 20th, 5:30 a.m. Central Time, 6:30 Eastern. We've got Bank of England's Carney speaking. He's speaking in Washington. And then an hour later, he's speaking again at a European event in Washington. So two separate speeches from the Bank of England's chairperson. Then 7:30 in the morning Central Time, 8:30 Eastern, initial jobless claims and continuing claims, Jobless claims expected at 240,000. Continuing claims expected at 2.027 million. And then we've got the Philly Fed index for April, expected to come out at 26. Last was 32.8. Very volatile number, so that estimate isn't something you can rely upon. Later on in the morning, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, Eurozone consumer confidence for April. It's supposed to be down 4.8 versus a down 5 last. Same time, U.S. leading indicators for March. That's going all the way back to March. We're already toward the middle or end of April, so they don't have as big of a market effect, but they're supposed to be up 0.2% versus 0.6. Then in the evening, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, we've got the Nikkei Japanese PMI for manufacturing for April, no estimate on that, and Japan's tertiary industry index month over month for February, expected to rise at 0.3% versus unchanged last. And then on to Friday, April 21st, we have Germany's manufacturing PMI, the market survey, and their services PMI, and their composite PMI, all the German ones. 58 versus 58.3 on the manufacturing PMI expectation. Services PMI for April, 55.5 versus 55.6 last. And the estimate for the composite, 56.9 versus 57.1 last. That's all 2:30 a.m. Central, 3:30 Eastern Time. A half an hour later, you've got the Eurozone, same three. Market Eurozone manufacturing, services, and composite PMI, all for April. Manufacturing expected 56 versus 56.2 last. Services expected 56 versus 56 last. And then the composite expected 56.4 versus 56.4 last. All of these are preliminary figures. They will be revised in the coming weeks. 3:30 a.m. Central, 4:30 Eastern. UK retail sales year over year. That's expected to be up 3.8% versus 4.1 last. And a number that they call the retail sales including auto fuel. That's a year over year number. That's expected to be 3.4 versus 3.7. 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Canadian Consumer Price Index, month over month and year over year for March. Month over month expected to be 0.4 versus 0.2 last. Year over year expected to be 1.8 versus 2% last. I expect the Canadian number to move the Canadian dollar quite a bit after the minutes from the Bank of Canada that we saw last week. Then we've got at 8:45 Central Time, 9:45 Eastern Time, the same company market. We've got the U.S. manufacturing, services, and composite PMI April preliminary. The U.S. number on the manufacturing is supposed to be at 53.5 estimate versus 53.3 last. Services PMI 53.5 versus 52.8 last. And the composite, again, April preliminary, 53 estimate versus 53 last. And then 15 minutes later, 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, U.S. existing home sales month over month expected to be up 2.1 versus down 3.7% last. Lastly, the usual time brought back to its normal day this week, Baker Hughes rig counts for April 21st. That comes out at 12 noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Let me turn it over to Mike now to let you know what he is seeing on the chart so you know how to react to all of that data. Mike, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Euro, US dollar, strong move up. Wednesday, pretty much fully reversed Thursday, Friday. Trend line held. We have a rising trend line here. If it heads lower Sunday and Monday and breaks through this trend line, which right now is pretty much coming in at Friday's lows, 106.04. Watch for support possibly at 105.97. Then we don't really have much until we get down to the 105.98 level and then the 105.69 level. If we rally up, key resistance 106.21, followed by an hooking 8 EMA, but we're really going to be watching the highs from Friday, 106.29, And then the next major resistance area up is 106.49 to 106.54. If that is broken, you have a declining 21 coming in about 106.58. So lots of overhead resistance here. If all that is broken, then we have a flattening 50 and the highs from Wednesday, which first we look at the close from Wednesday, 106.66, and then the highs of 106.75. Over to the pound. Rejected again from the key GAN cluster we have right around the 125.50 to 54 area. If we rally tonight and tomorrow, 125.44 minor resistance, then we have that 125.54 very significant resistance. If that is broken, we're looking for a retest of Thursday's highs, 125.75. And then eventually, if that's broken, all the way up to 126.15. We have lower, we have a GAN cluster between 124.82 to 88, and we have the rising 8 EMA right in the middle of that. If that is broken, watch for a potential move down all the way to the 124.58, rising 21 rotation zone. And if that is broken, next key level is 124.36. Over to the yen. US dollar, Japanese yen has headed lower. Hit some of our key GAN areas right around that 108.77. If it continues lower Sunday and Monday, next key level is not till 107.88. So pretty decent fall. And then the next area below that is 107.03. Those are the only targets to the downside that we have right now. On a rally, minor resistance 108.72. Next significant resistance comes in at 109.41 area. And then we have about the 109.62 to 109.73, where we have a 200 and a declining 8. If all that is broken, we'd return to the breakout zone at 110.28. US dollar Swiss, sort of caught in this range, compressing back down. So we're going to be looking for either breaks above this key resistance area and declining trend line or below this rising trend line. If it does head lower, support right around the 10031 and then the 10023. If that's broken, the defining point target, which is essentially 10008. Then below that, we have a huge GAN cluster between 99.97 and 99.88 for support. On a rally up, resistance 10070, and then we have a lot of different resistance areas between 10076 to 10081. Once that's broken, we could possibly look for a run all the way up to 10097 to 101. Aussie US dollar, nice move upward the last 3 days. If it continues up Sunday and Monday, watch for minor resistance 75.90 to our significant level 75.93. If that is broken, watch for a retest of Thursday's highs at 75.95. And if that breaks also, then 76.02 is next key level higher. On a move above that, on a very strong rally, next level is not up until 76.27. If it pulls back, watch for some support right around the 75.50 level where we have a flat 200, a hooking up 8, and a GAN level. So that's going to be pretty major support. And if that's broken, our next cluster is down at 75.24 to 75.28 area. And then if that is broken, we're looking for a 75.11 to 74.98 support area right in here. US CAD, back to our congestion zone. We broke to the upside, came back, broke to the downside, completely reversed that move, and back into the congestion zone. So this seems to be an area that the CAD is pretty comfortable in right now. On a rally on Sunday and Monday, minor resistance right around this 133.38, followed by the 133.48, and then the 133.62 area. US dollar CAD, we broke to the upside, fell back through it, found to the downside, and now we're back in this congestion zone where it seems to be very comfortable. If we rally up on Monday, watch for resistance right around the 133.38, followed by 133.48. Next level, then we have a minor Gann cluster between 133.62 to 133.69 right in here. Then we're looking for a potential rally up to 133.93. If it heads back down, we have very minor support at 133.09, which is right around here. Then we have a significant level, 132.97. If that is broken, next key level is 132.83. And then finally, pretty significant support area around these this open and close, the slightly rising 200 and a very key Gann level, 50% Gann level, 132.52. Finally, over to the peso. US dollar, Mexican peso heading down on Friday. Next key level lower is not down until the 1830.00. And then if that's broken, we have a Gann cluster and full retracement area of about 1831, which you're going to target. On a move higher, resistance at 1860.51, followed by 1862.62, and then not much until we're looking at the 1878.07, where we have this close, this open, and the declining 21. So pretty significant area of resistance up there. That's all we have for you. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Michael. Hope everyone's having a good weekend, and thanks for watching, and we will talk to you guys in the next Path Chat. Cheers, everyone.